U.S. releases 14 Canadian wolves into.
What if I told you that 14 wolves changed the course of an entire ecosystem? In 1995, the US government did something that seemed pretty simple. They took 14 Canadian wolves and released them into Yellowstone National Park. What followed wasn't just the restoration of a species, it was the transformation of an entire ecosystem, the revival of a dying landscape, and an economic miracle that would eventually save America $94 billion. But to understand how 14 wolves managed to do all this, we need to go back to when everything started going wrong. Here's an unobtrusive reminder to hit that like button if you're ready for an incredible story about how nature can heal itself in the most unexpected ways. Let's start in the early 1900s. Back then, wolves were seen as nothing but pests, dangerous predators that needed to be eliminated. The US government actually had official wolf killers, people whose job was literally to just shoot, trap, or poison every wolf they could find. And they were really good at their jobs. By 1926, the last wolf pack in Yellowstone had been killed. People celebrated this as a victory. They had no idea what they'd just done. But here's where it gets really interesting. First, everything seemed fine. Sure, there were no wolves, but who needs wolves, right? Wrong. Over the next few decades, things started going terribly wrong. But so slowly that at first, nobody noticed. It was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. Without wolves, the elk population exploded. And I mean exploded. By the 1990s, there were about 19,000 elk in Yellowstone's northern range alone. These elk basically turned into living lawnmowers, eating every young tree and bush they could find. Aspen trees, willows, cottonwoods, nothing stood a chance. Saplings would sprout in the spring, and by winter they'd all be gone. But wait, I hear you asking, couldn't they just hunt the elk to control the population?
Yeah,
well,
but
they
what
tried.
the hell?
But here's something fascinating.
Wait, how much elk are you gonna
Wolves
hunt
don't
though?
just kill elk, they change how elk behave. This is something scientists call the ecology of fear, and it's way more important than anyone realized. When there are no wolves around, elk can just stand in one place, munching away until they've eaten everything. It's like teenagers raiding a refrigerator when their parents are away for the weekend. But with wolves present, elk have to keep moving, stay vigilant, avoid certain areas. They can't just hang out by rivers and streams all day, eating all the young trees. By the early 1990s, Yellowstone was in serious trouble. The park's ecosystem was collapsing, but most visitors
It's like what happened
no
with
idea.
bison. Like humans don't learn sometimes, like, and they still don't learn because there's a lot of poaching and stuff like that, which is a little different than hunting. Because when you're poaching, but that's what these guys essentially did. They pushed the shit out of wolves and bison and shit, and then they reintroduced them. You know, and it's sad because I don't know much about it, but I know like it's not the same. Like it's never gonna be like the natural species of the land, no matter what. You know, like if that makes sense. They're always gonna be from like somewhere else.
The beautiful mountains, the geysers, the elk everywhere, and think everything was perfect. But scientists were watching a different story unfold. The decision to bring back wolves wasn't an easy one. Ranchers fought against it, worried about their livestock. Hunters weren't happy either. They thought wolves would decimate the elk population they relied on. Some locals even spread rumors that the government was planning to release super wolves, specially bred killing machines that would terrorize the entire region. But here's something most people don't know. The wolves chosen for reintroduction were carefully selected. They picked wolves from Canada because these wolves were used to hunting the same prey they'd find in Yellowstone. They choose wolves from different packs to ensure genetic diversity. And get this, they even looked for wolves that had never had conflicts with humans or livestock. The actual reintroduction was like something out of a movie. In January 1995, 14 wolves were brought in, each one carefully sedated and transported in separate crates. The wolves were kept in acclimation pens for several weeks, allowing them to get used to their new home while still being protected. When they were finally released, nobody knew if they'd stay in the park or just run away. Not only did they stay, but they thrived. And this is where the story gets really interesting. Each wolf pack developed its own personality, its own hunting style, even its own family drama that researchers could follow like some wild animal soap opera. Take the Druid Peak Pack, for example. They became the most famous wolf pack in Yellowstone's history. Led by a wolf known as 21M, nicknamed the Gentleman, this pack grew to 37 members,
Wow.
the largest ever recorded in the park. Wolf 21 became legendary not just for his size and strength, but for his unusual behavior. He never killed defeated rivals, adopted orphaned pups, and stayed with the same mate for life. When his mate died, he stopped eating and died shortly after. Even scientists who try to avoid anthropomorphizing animals admitted this was something special. But the wolves didn't just create interesting stories. The wolf known as grew to 37 members, the largest ever recorded in the park. Wolf 21 became legendary not just for his size and strength, but for his unusual behavior. He never killed defeated rivals, adopted orphaned pups, and stayed with the same mate for life. When his mate died, he stopped eating.
Kind of confusing, but he never killed rivals. He adopted orphan pups and mated with one female for life. Damn.
Shortly after, even scientists who try to avoid and died shortly after. Even scientists who try to avoid anthropomorphizing animals admitted this was something special. But the wolves didn't just create interesting stories. They started changing everything around them. And I mean everything. Scientists call it a trophic cascade. But really, it was more like ecological dominoes, falling in ways nobody had predicted. First, the elk population started dropping. But not just because wolves were hunting them. The elk actually started behaving differently. They avoided valleys and gorges where they could be easily trapped. They spent less time by rivers where wolves could ambush them. This meant that in these areas, young trees could finally grow without being eaten. Within just a few years, new aspen, willow, and cottonwood trees were sprouting up along rivers. But this wasn't just about trees growing. It was the start of something much bigger. Those trees stabilized riverbanks, preventing erosion. This actually changed the rivers themselves. They became less wandering, more stable, and clearer. The changes in Yellowstone's rivers were just the beginning. With more trees along the riverbanks, beavers started coming back. Now, this is where things get really fascinating. In 1995, there was only one beaver colony in the park. By 2012, there were 9. Today, there are so many that scientists have trouble keeping count. And beavers, it turns out, are nature's engineers. Every beaver dam created new wetland habitat. These wetlands attracted more species: frogs, fish, birds, insects, and even otters. The dams also help prevent erosion and filter water, making the rivers cleaner. They even help during droughts by holding water in the landscape longer. But here's something nobody expected. The wolves started affecting the bears. How? Well, when wolves make a kill, they don't eat everything. They leave behind what scientists call wolf kills, basically leftover elk carcasses. These leftovers became a crucial food source for all sorts of animals, including grizzly bears. And it gets even more interesting. Remember those berries I mentioned the elk were eating? With fewer elk around, berry bushes started growing back. More berries meant more food for bears, especially in late summer when they're preparing for hibernation.
This is why it's important not to mess with the ecosystem. And then there's like in Florida, there's a lot of invasive species like boar, and well in general with the United States boar, and then the big snakes in Florida, which is like the pythons, I think, right? I could be wrong. I know this is like there's like an endangered species. I think it's pythons, like the long big snakes. I don't know. I could be wrong. But yeah, like it's insane.
Scientists found that Yellowstone's grizzly bears now get a significant portion of their diet from berries. Berries that wouldn't exist without wolves. And here's something that will really blow your mind. In 2017, scientists discovered that wolves might even be affecting Yellowstone's supervolcano. Yeah, you heard that right. Before wolves returned, the overgrazing elk were compacting the soil so much that it affected how underground heat dispersed. When wolves changed elk behavior and vegetation started growing back, it actually helped the soil become less compacted. This allowed underground heat to disperse more evenly. Now, this doesn't mean wolves are preventing a volcanic eruption, but it shows just how deep their influence goes. Literally. Scientists studying the park's geothermal features never expected that the return of a predator could affect something as fundamental as how heat moves through the ground.
It's insane.
It's just another example of how everything in nature is connected in ways we're still discovering. Even the coyotes were affected, though not in a way they probably appreciated. Before wolves returned, coyotes were the top dog in Yellowstone. They had no competition. But wolves don't like coyotes at all. The wolf pack started killing coyotes and driving them out of certain areas. The coyote population dropped by 50%. This might sound bad, but it had some surprising benefits. With fewer coyotes around, populations of small mammals started increasing. More mice and voles meant more food for hawks, owls, foxes, and weasels. The whole food web became more complex and more stable. Now, let's talk about that $94 billion. Because this is where the story gets really interesting from an economic perspective. When scientists started calculating the economic benefits of all these changes, they had to consider things nobody had thought about before. First, there's tourism. Wolf watching alone brings in about $35 million per year to the communities around Yellowstone. People come from all over the world just to see these wolves. Some dedicated wolf watchers spend thousands of dollars on special equipment just to observe them from a distance. But that's just the beginning. The recovering forests capture and store carbon dioxide, a service that's worth billions in terms of climate change mitigation.
Let me replay that again, sorry.
Watching alone brings in about $35 million per year to the communities around Yellowstone. People come from all over the world just to see these wolves. Some dedicated wolf watchers spend thousands of dollars on special equipment just to observe them from a distance. But that's just the beginning. The recovering forests capture and store carbon dioxide, a service that's worth billions in terms of climate change mitigation. The healthier rivers and streams reduce water treatment costs for surrounding communities. The restored wetlands help prevent flooding and provide natural water storage. And here's something really unexpected. The wolves are even saving money on road maintenance. How? Well, with fewer elk hanging around on riverbanks, there's less erosion. Less erosion means more stable ground, which means roads and bridges last longer and need fewer repairs. But not everything has been perfect. The wolf reintroduction program has faced its share of challenges. In 2012, something happened that sparked international outrage. Wolf 832F, known to countless tourists and researchers as 06 for the year she was born, was legally shot just outside the park's boundary. This wasn't just any wolf. She was often called the most famous wolf in the world. She could take down an elk by herself, led her pack with remarkable skill, and had been featured in countless documentaries. When she died, she had 3 GPS collars on her because so many different research projects were studying her. Her death highlighted one of the biggest challenges in wolf conservation. What happens when wolves leave the park? Inside Yellowstone, they're protected. Step outside and it's a different story. Some states have even established wolf hunting seasons, leading to heated debates between conservationists and local communities. But here's something fascinating that came out of all.
If a wolf has a collar, bro, don't fucking shoot it. It's like, if you know that, it's like, I don't get that shit. Like, I've heard of stuff like this. Obviously, it happens, but bro, if it's a collar, do not shoot it.
All this controversy, scientists started studying how wolf packs adapt to losing their leaders. They discovered something incredible. Wolf packs are remarkably resilient. When an alpha wolf dies, the pack doesn't just fall apart. They reorganize, adapt, and continue. Dies, the pack hunting seasons, leading to heated debates between conservationists and local communities. But here's something fascinating that came out of all this controversy. Scientists started studying how wolf packs adapt to losing their leaders. They discovered something incredible.
Bro, you know
wolf
there's a
packs
Jurassic
are
Park
remarkably
5
resilient. When an alpha wolf dies,
There's a what? Yeah, the
Jurassic
fucking
Park 5?
Jurassic Park, forgot the name.
Rebirth?
the pack doesn't just fall apart. They reorganize, adapt, and continue. It's like they have a built
Yeah, Rebirth.
controversy. Scientists started studying how
The
wolf
fuck
packs
will I
adapt to
remember?
losing their leaders. They discovered something incredible. Wolf packs are remarkably resilient. When an alpha wolf dies, the pack doesn't just fall apart. They reorganize, adapt, and continue. It's like they have a built-in backup system. And speaking of discoveries, the Yellowstone Wolf Project has revealed things about wolf behavior that nobody knew before. For instance, scientists found that wolves play favorites within their packs. They form special bonds with certain pack members, much like humans have best friends. They even grieve when pack members die.
Wait, what
Something
happened?
packs.
What happened?
Pack doesn't just fall apart. They reorganize, adapt, and continue. It's like they have a built-in backup system. And speaking of discoveries, the Yellowstone Wolf Project has revealed things about wolf behavior that nobody knew before. Wolf packs are remarkably resilient. When an alpha wolf dies, the pack doesn't just fall apart. They reorganize, adapt, and continue. It's like they have a built-in backup system. And speaking of discoveries, the Yellowstone Wolf Project has revealed things about wolf behavior that nobody knew before. For instance, scientists found that wolves play favorites within their packs. They form special bonds with certain pack members, much like humans have best friends. They even grieve when pack members die, something that was captured on video when the famous Wolf 21 lost her mate. The success in Yellowstone has inspired similar projects around the world. In Europe, wolves are naturally returning to areas where they were wiped out centuries ago. In Scotland, there's serious talk about reintroducing wolves to help control the deer population. Even in China, officials are studying the Yellowstone model to help restore their own ecosystems. But perhaps the most important lesson from all this isn't about wolves at all. It's about how nature works in ways we're only beginning to understand. Those 14 Canadian wolves didn't just change Yellowstone. They changed how we think about conservation. They showed us that sometimes the best way to fix an ecosystem isn't to micromanage every detail, but to bring back the missing pieces and let nature do its thing. Today, there are roughly 528 wolves in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. Every year, they attract over 500,000 visitors to the park. They've helped create jobs, restore rivers, bring back trees, and save billions of dollars. Not bad for 14 wolves that nobody wanted back in 1995. You know what's really ironic? Some of the ranchers who initially opposed the wolf reintroduction now admit it's helped their land. The healthier ecosystem means better grazing for their cattle. Some have even developed successful wolf-watching businesses on their properties. Talk about turning enemies into allies. Scientists are still discovering new effects.
This person add wolves, coyotes, bears, mountain lions, deer, and elk come down from my yard from the mountains behind my house, British Columbia. We had 6-foot wildlife fence around the back yard. We had 3,000 square feet of garden. Nothing bothered us other than the gophers and occasional pack rats. Had a younger deer try to jump the fence and break its neck once it was being chased down by wolves or something, but that was it. The wolves didn't actually want anything with humans, but a cougar killed a neighbor dog once. It was a good life. I was getting crazy idiots killing people. It's all drug crazy idiots killing people. I was safer with the wolves better than cougars.
Effects of the wolf reintroduction.
Facts.
Just last year, they found that wolves might be helping protect other.
Bro, it's really simple, bro. You just don't I don't know how people don't think like this. Like, it's just super simple, bro. You just don't mess with nature. Just let us do a thing. Live alongside with nature. Don't mess with it.
Species from disease by removing sick animals from the population. They're basically nature's quality control system. You made it to the end of this incredible story about how 14 wolves managed to transform an entire ecosystem and save billions of dollars in the process. If you learned something new about how nature can heal itself when we give it a chance, don't forget to hit that like button. And maybe next time someone tells you one small change can't make a difference, tell them about the wolves of Yellowstone.
I don't think it's mind-boggling, though. I'm gonna be honest, but it is a W-ass fucking video. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think it's mind-boggling. It's common sense. But anyways, guys, I'm definitely gonna upload that on YouTube. If you guys haven't, man, make sure you guys sub up, like, comment.